The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
And I want to share with you a magnificent story that I heard over from Rabbi Pesach Krohn. He said not too many years ago here in New York there was a major snowstorm. It was extremely difficult to get around, and the sanitation department did not send out their garbage man until a few days into the storm when a lot of the snow would subside. Now, here in New York, not so far from where we live, in Kew Gardens, there's a great rabbi, a big Talmud Chacham and a big tzaddik. His name is Reb Kalman Epstein. Reb Kalman Epstein is a very great pakeach, and he was up 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't know why he was up 2 o'clock in the morning. I assume he was learning Torah. And suddenly he hears the garbage men are going around to collect the garbage. After a few days of the storm, finally they came around to collect the garbage. So he figured this is my opportunity to go and take out any garbage that's in the house. So as a good husband, he runs around the house, takes all the garbage, puts it into one bag, and he runs out. And just as he's about to place the garbage bag into the garbage bin, he turns around. He's about to run into the house. It's freezing cold, 2 o'clock in the morning. Suddenly he hears from behind him a garbage man take the garbage and say, "Excuse me, but are you a rabbi?" Now he's thinking, what in the world can a garbage man, a sanitation man, want from a rabbi at 2 o'clock in the morning? So out of curiosity, he turns around and says, "Yeah, I am a rabbi." And the garbage man says, "Rabbi, I'm a Jew. My name is Theodore. My mother just passed away a few hours ago. I was the first one to find out from amongst all my siblings. And although me and my mother, we didn't have much of a relationship, Rabbi, my siblings, they want to cremate my mother. And although my mother wasn't religious and she never passed down any of these Jewish values to us, I know that my mother will want a Jewish burial. Rabbi, my mother will light the Shabbat candles every single Friday night. She would bless those candles. Rabbi, is there any way we could make sure that my mother gets a Jewish burial, a proper burial?" And the Rav Kalman, when he heard these words, he was very moved. And because he was such a pakeach and he loved every single Jew and he was prepared to do everything and anything he can for any Jew, and he was very assertive when it came to these things, he turns to Theodore and he says, "Look, listen to me good. Tomorrow morning, as early as you can, I want you to call the funeral home. And I want you to tell them that your mother just passed away, and they should find the body wherever it is, and they should arrange it that your mother should have a funeral. An hour before the funeral will proceed, call your siblings and say, Mom just passed away last night. Please come on time. Here's the address to the funeral." But do not contact them before, because God has orchestrated that you should find out first, so you could take care of the matter and take initiative. Theodore thought it was an excellent idea, so that's what I'll do. Next morning, Theodore goes ahead, calls the funeral home, tells them that his mother just passed away. They go ahead and they get the body. And just as the rabbi told him, an hour before the funeral was ready to proceed, he goes ahead and he calls his siblings and says, Mom just passed away last night. Please be here on time. Here's the address. Now, of course, they were upset. They didn't want to cremate their mother because they believed this is a way to connect to her and to keep her close in their proximity. They were going to split up the ashes amongst each other, and this is what they felt is going to keep their mother near them. But at a time like this, what are you going to do? And they didn't make much of a big deal out of it, and they just decided to cooperate, and they came, and they were on their way. Now, as the siblings were on their way to the funeral, Theodore goes ahead and he calls Reb Kalman, and he says, "Reb Kalman, I want to thank you. Everything went accordingly. My siblings are on their way right now, and we're about to proceed with the funeral within about an hour. But I just have one problem. Rabbi, I don't know any rabbis. Can you come and eulogize my mother?" Now, can you imagine someone is asking you to eulogize somebody you never met, you never spoke to? What are you supposed to say about them? You don't know the person. But because he was such a Baal Chesed, Reb Kalman said, "Okay, I'll come." And of course he showed up, and he stood up in front of everybody. And this is what he said. He said, "We reap in death what we sow in life." And this woman, although she wasn't religious and she never had any Jewish values passed down to her, and so she wasn't able to pass it down to her children, she was still connected to God. She had a relationship with God because she would light those candles every single week, the Shabbat candles. And I'm sure that in that merit that she was connected to God, God made sure that she should have a Jewish burial. And Hashem has allowed me to meet her son so that I could help her get that burial that she deserves and every single Jew deserves. And then he went on to speak about the beauty of this mitzvah of lighting candles for Shabbat, and everybody was very moved and touched by everything that he said, and the funeral went on. The next morning, Reb Kalman wanted to call Theodore and see how he's doing, how he's coping with his loss, so he called him, but Theodore never picked up. And he called, but no matter how many times he called, Theodore wouldn't pick up, and he figured, that's okay, I'll just wait a week. And the garbage man is going to come, I'm sure Theodore is going to come back and he's going to collect the garbage, and I'll see how he's doing. He waited a week. Reb Kalman hears the garbage truck is outside. He runs out of the house. He sees the garbage truck. He runs towards the garbage truck and he starts screaming, "Theodore! Theodore!" And he's running towards the garbage truck. The garbage man turns around and he says, "Who's Theodore? Who are you looking for?" He says, "What do you mean? Theodore's one of your buddies. He was here last week. He was collecting the garbage with the rest of you." He says, what do you mean? Oh, that guy Theodore? Oh, that guy Theodore, he doesn't live around here. He doesn't work with us. It only happened to be because there was such a massive snowstorm and we needed some backup because we were going over time. We had garbage men from all over, and so he was commissioned to come here to New York, specifically in this area, to help us out with our situation over here. But Theodore doesn't live here, and he never comes to New York, and he'll probably never come back to New York. And when Reb Kalman heard this, all of a sudden it hit him, and he realized that God has guided the footsteps, the footsteps of Theodore to his doorstep, the very same night that his mother passed away. And of all the places, and all the timings, Hashem has sent him to his door. The same time as Reb Kalman was running out, and Hashem has made it that they should end up speaking to each other, so that Reb Kalman could help him get his mother at the funeral. Can you imagine such a thing? What are the chances that out of all the occupations Theodore could have had, he was a garbage man? Out of all the times that he could end up in New York, it was that night when his mother passed away. I'm sure Reb Kalman doesn't stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning every single night. But it happened to be that night God made sure he should stay up, because at that night Theodore was coming and Theodore's mom needs a burial. And so he had to run out and help him get his mother the burial that she deserves. Can you imagine such a thing? And he thought this story is amazing. It gets even better, because this story has gone famous and it went viral and a lot of people heard about it. And there was one great rabbi, his name is Rav David Cohen, and he said something so brilliant. He said, you understand the muvan, the brilliance of the story? Can you appreciate the brilliance of the story? He said, God works mida keneged mida, measure for measure. This woman, she was very meticulous and very careful with one mitzvah, and that mitzvah was the lighting of the candles. God says, you were careful with the lighting of the candles, you were careful with the fire for Shabbat, and so she was saved from the fires of those crematoriums, that crematorium that her children were going to cremate her in. She was careful with the fire of Shabbat, and I get the chills every time I say this, and so she was saved from the crematorium, she was saved from being cremated. And you could see from here a beautiful lesson, that when you're careful with the mitzvot, you don't know which mitzvah is going to be your ticket to Olam Haba. Which mitzvah is going to stand to protect you till your last breath. We can never underestimate any mitzvah. The power of just lighting the candles is what saved her, and what gave her a funeral, what gave her a burial. And because of this one mitzvah, she was able to take this mitzvah and bring it with her to heaven. It's not just the mitzvah is going to protect you in this world, but it's going to bring you up to the next world, it's going to stand for you, and it's going to be your attorney in the world to come. And so we have to appreciate every single mitzvah and realize how precious it is, and that every single mitzvah is really going to stand by our side in this world and in the world to come.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org